which carbon credits are sold and purchased. Companies or individuals can use them, and they can use them to compensate for their greenhouse gas emissions by purchasing these credits from entities that actually remove greenhouse gas emissions from their supply chain. So there are broadly two types of carbon credits, typically compliance and voluntary. But today, we gather to just unravel a couple of truths and myths about carbon markets overall. So I would love to take a moment and just introduce the panelists that will be discussing and engaging in a couple of conversations with us here today. First, we have Ms. Becky Shepard, who's the Executive Director of We Act for Environmental Justice. She's a stalwart advocate for equity, justice, and environmental matters. She's also the co-chair for the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council, which provides advice and recommendation to the White House Council for Environmental Quality on its whole of government approach to environmental justice. Also joining us is from Zimbabwe is Mr. Shimiso Mutisi. He's the Deputy Director of the Zimbabwe Environmental Law Association. Shimiso's expertise in environmental law and his dedication to sustainable practices makes him a valuable contributor to our discourse today. Next, we have David Dobrowski. He's a partner at West Africa Blue, and he has a focus on innovative solutions. And David has also been instrumental in driving sustainable initiatives in the West Africa region. And certainly last but not least, we welcome Pedro Harada. Pedro is the Associate Vice President for Carbon Markets and Private Sector at the Environmental Defense Fund. He leads EDF's work to assist private sector and governments in leveraging carbon markets to address the climate challenge, and he also serves as the co-chair of the expert panel for the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market globally. So this is our panelists today. So I just want to, let's just set the scene overall. This concept of environmental justice, which many of our panelists today have been engaged in, we would love to know, what does that mean for you, and what are the main financial mechanisms that you've seen or think are necessary for practical implementation of carbon markets overall? And I would really love to start that conversation, that question. I would love to, if you would like to start, Peggy. What do you think about that?
So good afternoon, everyone. So environmental justice, to me and my organization and advocates around the country in the United States, has been a national movement for the past 30-some years to redress the disproportionate impact of pollution in communities of color, low income, and indigenous communities in the United States. It means the lack of enforcement in many of our communities of environmental regulation. It means the lack of inclusion of perspectives and voices of the most affected communities in developing policy and in government commissions and advisory boards. And it also means the lack of diversity in many of the large green groups that have a lot of power and influence in developing domestic and international policy. So those are some of the key aspects of environmental justice, and I would also ask you to take a look at the 17 principles of environmental justice that were developed back in 1991. You can find them on Google, and believe me, they are all quite relevant today, even after all of these years, because frankly, none of them have been addressed yet.
Thank you for that, Peggy. Shimiso, did you want to contribute into that conversation in terms of environmental justice? What does it mean to you? And what are the main financial mechanisms necessary for practical implementation of carbon markets?
Thank you very much. So for me, environmental justice includes both procedural and substantive rights. So by substantive rights, we are referring to the rights of local communities to live in a clean and healthy environment, to make sure that water resources are not polluted, making sure that local communities are not displaced from their land. So it also includes tenure rights, and also the aspect around benefiting from the resources. It could be financial benefits, It could also include environmental benefits to local communities. So those elements are quite important. However, when we talk about procedural rights, we are referring to the rights of local communities to participate in decision-making processes. So it could be around deciding how to distribute revenue, it is from carbon credits, for example. It could also relate to accessing information around the different revenue streams. So transparency and accountability issues come into play in terms of how those resources are used. So for me, it's both a procedural